all it took was one brave judge to totally destroy mask mandates across airplanes, trains, car share service, everywhere where masking had been strongest for the past couple of years. In one 59-page ruling that came down yesterday while we were on the air, Judge Catherine Kimball Mizell decides that there is no basis whatsoever for the CDC's arbitrary and capricious mask rule to still exist on airplanes, in public transit of any sort. She strikes it down, and almost immediately it felt like the Berlin Wall was coming down. Buck, I think this may be, really when you think about it, the most influential district court ruling of the 21st century so far. Obviously, lots of Supreme Court rulings have massive impact, circuit court rulings, state Supreme Court rulings. But when you think about the millions of people that were immediately impacted in a positive way, as every airline throughout yesterday afternoon and into the evening announced that they were finally doing away with this mandate, I want you to listen to some of the joyous reactions across the nation. Let's play cut 4.
The judge overturned the mask mandate. My company and Michael said, at this moment, if you choose to, you may remove your mask.
Masks now optional for employees, customers, following the White House.
It's over immediately. Congratulations.
I'm not much of a singer, Clay, but I would have been singing on that plane, too. I would have been very, very excited about this. It's amazing to see, first of all, that it took this where were all the other constitutionalist, reasonable judges on that? I'm very happy for Judge Mizell down in Florida. I'm also happy that apparently the state of Florida is single-handedly trying to prevent the collapse of this country into authoritarian lunacy. You know, Florida has done more, at least you could say, than any other individual state in the fight for freedom during the pandemic madness, the lockdowns, the mask mandates, all the stuff that's been going on. It was unsettling, though, to see some of these now infamous, maybe famous, depends on what side of the aisle you're on, blue check MDs, folks. These are verified on Twitter doctors who are always mask fanatics, always pushing for more restrictions, saying things like, oh, this is outrageous, I will never fly again, or how could they do this to people who made risk mitigation decisions for themselves that have now been upended by the change in policy without due notice? All right, first of all, have they ever flown on an airplane? Because airlines do to you whatever they want, all right? Your plans mean nothing to them. That's one part of it. And the other is, who could still think this is a good idea, Clay? I am flabbergasted by the idiocy.
It is amazing. I want to read some of these because I do think it's so entertaining. Jeremy Faust, MD, MS, parenthetical ER physician. By the way, if you need to put all of your degrees in your Twitter bio, how big of a loser are you? All right? I mean, seriously. Jeremy Faust, MD, MS, parenthetical ER physician. Hi, United. When I bought my tickets for me, my wife, who is pregnant, and our unvaccinated 4-year-old, I assumed you would continue to have a mask mandate. Now you cancel it, and we will have to board our return flight under your new no mask required policy, ? Thanks so much. By the way, I so wanted to respond, and I did respond to Jeremy Faust, MD, PhD, MS, ER physician. I mean, how did these people after 2 years, this guy is based on his picture in his 30s, maybe he's early 40s. Presumably, if his wife is pregnant, she's young enough to still get pregnant. Pregnant person, as I'm sure Jeremy would refer to her as. And he's got a 4-year-old. Their entire family is under no risk. And the idea that if they had masks on airplanes, they would somehow be mitigating the risk is not in any way represented by any of the data. And so, Buck, what I think these things represent, and there's another great one that was out, this guy, what's this guy's name, Buck? Dr. Fengdang or something like this.
Eric Fangelding, I think. Is that
yes.
right? Did I get that right?
Eric,
that's pretty good.
Yeah. Dr. Eric, they have to put the doctor in their Twitter account, right? You can't just be whatever your name is. You have to be as if Eric Fangelding was going to be taken as a Twitter handle. He has to be Dr. Eric Ding. I will not be flying Alaska Air until they reinstate public safety measures against COVID-19. Hashtag boycott Alaska Air. And I just responded, rent a car, loser. But these people, I think, Buck, are representing, this is the realization that is storming their brains that they don't matter suddenly after 2 years of being MD blue check marks where they were constantly lecturing everybody about things that mostly made no sense. In one fell swoop, this judge, this brave woman, Catherine Kimball Mizell, who I think deserves a lot of credit, 59-page report, boom, all of a sudden it's all over. It really did, Buck, feel to me like the Berlin Wall coming down.
I just want to tell all the libs, build your own airline.
Yeah.
What's the problem? Build your own airline. What's the big deal? These people were horrible for 2 years. I mean, especially
Yes.
the blue check brigade on Twitter. And just so everyone gets it, you have the blue check MD brigade tweets out stuff like mask up, it's responsible. And then MSNBC producers and CNN producers and others see that. They put it up on their screen, and then they reach out and they book that individual who's an MD to be a guest. So it was this big cycle of COVID Fauciite lunacy that was constantly going on. So when we talk, even if you're not on Twitter or whatever, the people that would then be asked to write the op-ed in the New York Times, this also goes to why Twitter is so important in the media news cycle. If you became an outspoken, mask-on-plane, blue-check MD, like some of the ones Clay's talking about, you were writing op-eds in the New York Times, you were on CNN, you might have even gotten invited to the Biden White House, you might have been talking to Jen Psaki or Joe Biden himself about these policies. So it's a feeder for all of that. And these individuals have done more to damage the public's faith in public health as a profession than anybody could have ever imagined before. Because remember, the original breach of the public trust, and Clay knows exactly what I'm going to say, was these are the same people, the people right now who are saying you should still have to mask up on planes because I'm a doctor and I'm so smart, were the ones saying when everyone else was locked down, these BLM protests are really important, guys. This is about saving lives, so we can make an exception for this. They are ideologically overzealous libs. That's what you're actually dealing with.
There's no doubt. And what is going to continue to be a battle, and by the way, I want to say this. They will try to bring this back.
I was going to say, you don't think we're done, do you? I don't think we're done either. They're going to bring it back when they can.
They will try to bring it back this coming winter, or if there's another variant, and that is why we have to send such an incontrovertible message come November. Everybody has to vote out all of these Democrats who tried to take away your freedoms. There have to be consequences. There needs to be a reckoning. I wanted to open up lines, too, and let people who were on airplanes and actually experience. Because how cool is that, Buck? When you're, what I thought was so great about those videos that went viral of the pilots being able to come out and the flight attendants being able to come out was you saw how small the number of people that were actually committed to wanting to wear masks really was when those airplanes erupt in cheers and people are ripping the masks off their faces. It's a tiny subset that dictated this to us.
Oh, the COVID commies were always a tiny minority of the overall population when it came to masking on planes. Certainly by year 2 of this, I do not believe that anybody who was willing to sit in a restaurant without a mask on should have been, by logic, willing to sit in an airplane, which is actually safer. It's not even equivalent. It is safer than a crowded restaurant or bar. So it made no sense all along. But we were being held hostage to the neuroses of leftists who think that fashion and science are the same thing. Whatever is at one point in time what the cool kids are saying is actually what the science says, which is not in any way the same thing. So the end of this, I think, is fantastic, and it's also a reminder, I think, of why this was so important, Clay, to the people that were the most restrictionist, the lockdowners, the Fauci. By the way, where's Fauci? I want to see.
It's true. He's
I haven't
totally
seen
vanished.
Fauci in a few minutes.
Yeah.
He should be appearing on TV any moment saying, it's too early. It has only been 2 years of masking on planes. We can't take our foot off the throttle or whatever you use a foot for in a plane. Yeah, I mean, there's no way that Fauci's going to appear right now because everyone would say, wow, he really is absolutely horrible. But I don't think it's gone for good. And now is when the voting actually really needs to get ramped up, folks, or rather the idea of voting needs to be so clear for everybody. Because, Clay, the federal mask mandate on planes was the libs sticking their thumb in the eyes of everybody who lives in a red state, of everybody who didn't have to deal with the COVID madness. And so this is really going to heat things up because they like that. This was a toy that the left had that they really don't want to give up. And so you're going to see both sides getting really aggravated over this.
How about the cowardice of the Biden administration, too? I don't think we can underrate this. As we were talking and this news came out yesterday, and they didn't, remember, Buck, when we broke the news, and I said, well, that's interesting. The Department of Justice didn't immediately say we intend to appeal. And, they said we'll have to review the ruling. And basically what Biden did and has done so far is he allowed this Trump-appointed judge, and God bless her again, Judge Catherine Kimball Mizell, who deserves a lot of credit for writing what may be the most consequential federal district court opinion of the 21st century so far when you consider all of the impacts that it immediately undertook based on when her ruling came out, the millions of people who were immediately impacted. Buck, when you really break this down, Biden just allowed this 35-year-old judge, Trump appointee, to change the entire CDC rules, basically, by pointing out that they were illegitimate. And that way he didn't have to get attacked by his own base, which are those blue check mark, I want to wear mask forever people. So now Biden can say, oh, this wasn't my choice. This was the choice of this Trump judge. But by not fighting it, he's acquiescing to the fact that her legal reasoning is correct, but simultaneously being able to blame her so that his base doesn't attack him for making this choice.
You said about this mask ruling out of a federal court in Florida that it's a disappointing decision, and you say you continue to recommend that people wear masks. Why is it that we can sit here in the White House briefing room with no masks, but people can't sit in an airplane cabin with no masks?
Well, Peter, I'm not a doctor. You're not a doctor. That I'm aware of. If you're a doctor, I wasn't aware of that until today. Okay, not a doctor. Just making sure. I don't know. But these determinations, remember the masking guidance is green, yellow, and red. We are currently in a green zone in Washington, D.C., so they're not recommending it. And this is based on health considerations and data that the CDC looks at about transmissibility as we've seen an increase in cases on airplanes.
Welcome back to Clay and Buck. There was a little exchange just yesterday between Jen Psaki, chief White House propaganda czar, and Peter Doocy, who is asking actual questions, challenging power, trying to get answers from a White House, from an administration it doesn't necessarily want to give because it doesn't help it politically. I thought that's what journalists were all supposed to do, but apparently it makes you a bad person if you actually do the job, according to Jen Psaki. Said some mean things about Mr. Doocy last week. But here we are, Clay, with the obvious moment of recognition here for this White House. There is no answer to the question that makes sense. And the whole, it's about doctors, and, we have a color chart, and there's, chartreuse and turquoise, and, right now we're in, phase 2 of the, it's sort of like an off-yellow color, but, it's not quite red. What is that blather? The answer to the question is it makes no sense whatsoever. You're safer on a plane than you are in a restaurant based on air quality, but you have a lot more power on a plane, and libs are obsessed with exercising authoritarian COVID powers like the Siberian prison guards they all wish they could be.
The White House kind of hung her out to dry there, honestly, with that answer. Because within minutes of that answer, Buck, they were telling TSA agents no longer enforce the protocols regarding masks at airports. And then you saw, I think Alaska Airlines was first, United Airlines, slowly every airline at first slowly, and then rapidly every airline made the choice that they were no longer going to enforce this. And that's why I compared it a little bit to the Berlin Wall coming down, because suddenly people are like, wait a minute, I don't have to wear this mask to go walk around in an airport anymore. The TSA agents are not going to be required to tell me to lift my masks. And by the way, I guarantee you there are tons, and that's why we want to open up the phone lines, 800-282-2882. What was the reaction wherever you were? If you were on a plane, if you were in an airport, what was the reaction as this news came down? Let's have a little fun celebrating the defeat of the COVID insanity.
Yeah, we got to have days where we all celebrate, folks. This is one of them, right? I mean, we take the fight to the left, to the libs, to the madness day in and day out. But you got to also take a moment to admire some of your handiwork. And we kept pushing for this one for a long time. So freedom is a beautiful thing, Clay.
Amen.